Welcome to episode 198 of the weekly Shared Security Show. And joining me this week is the one and only, actually only co-host today, Scott Wright.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Hi, Tom.
We're going back to the olden days of
well, if we were really old, then we would just be audio.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We've added new technologies to the show over the years.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So how are you doing today without Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. You know, we can express our opinions freely.
There'll be no political discussions.
It may not be quite as exciting as.
Well, for those of you wondering where Kevin is actually doing on-site work this week, so he's unable to attend, but he will be back next week, and we'll of course have topics that will enrage him. I'm sure all of these topics today will probably enrage him, but we'll just pretend that he's here.
Yes, so that's fine. We'll survive without him.
Yes. So before we get started, I was kind of curious to know how the weather is up in Canada, and it's starting to get pretty cold here in Cleveland.
Well,
so
it's funny. Like if Cleveland, you're almost directly west of me by I don't know 6 or 7 hour car drive, probably, right? Yeah. And we usually get the weather from Toronto here in Ottawa like a day later. And so, on Halloween, it was, rainy, and then it kind of cleared up a little bit here. And then I was talking to somebody in Toronto and said, "Oh, it's beautiful for Halloween." Like, oh, okay, well, no. So anyway, it's actually sunny here, probably about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So not terrible.
Nice. Yeah.
And we haven't really had a lot of frost or anything. So
it was 30 this morning in Cleveland. So
wow.
I
guess that's coming my way.
We're getting ready. Yeah. We're getting ready for winter. So
yeah.
Winter is coming.
Yep. It's useless information, but I look out my window on the second floor and I see a pond full of Canada geese.
Oh.
And it's a strange phenomenon because it fills up over the period of a day, and it's like wall to wall, or whatever you would call a lake, wall-to-wall geese. And then an hour later, I'll look out and there's none. They've all gone off. Yeah. And then the next day, a whole bunch more show up. It's really strange.
I have geese as well out in my backyard. And we also call them Canadian geese. I thought we'd call them
Cleveland
U.S. geese. Or U.S. geese, but United States geese. Yeah. But no, they're all Canadian for some reason.
Well, you have something to blame, when jets run it, have engine outages, that's the Canadian geese.
It's Canada's fault. Yes. Very nice. Well, let's move on here to our topics this week, and
the real security issues.
Now the real security issues. But the first story is that Facebook has dumped their famous and controversial face recognition technology that's used within their platform. So
that is news.
It is big news, actually, because this is the technology that allows Facebook to know, if you've tagged a certain person automatically, because it has collected all of this face data. In fact, they've collected billions of people's face data to match up people's photos every time that you upload a photo to Facebook, and they are deleting that.
Would have been interesting to hear the discussion around justifying what are the pros and cons of stepping back from facial recognition. There must have been some pretty big cons.
Well, they say that they are weighing I think a quote here, positive use cases against growing societal concerns, especially with regulators that have not provided clear rules yet on how face recognition can be used.
That's a clue. That's a clue. It means they're not doing it permanently. It means that if regulators come back with something clearer, they might actually.
Right. Yeah. That's right. So, that's really big news. It's also interesting, and we'll link this in the show notes, but the EFF did an article as well, just noting that in the last year or 2 years, that close to 20 US cities, like big cities too, including like San Francisco and Boston, they've banned government use of face recognition. Yeah. And there's also other countries as well. I think the European Union and New Zealand have also enacted laws against this technology.
Wow. So it wasn't imminent that we would all be under Big Brother's finger.
Yeah. So quite interesting. Just seeing, Facebook being probably one of the largest providers of face recognition, kind of making this change. And I will say that they seem to be making lots of these little changes. Ironically, I was just watching TV yesterday and saw 3 Facebook commercials. They were very interesting. There were interviews with some of the Facebook, I think, privacy staff talking about how they are changing kind of their mentality on certain topics and how they are protecting your privacy and protecting your interests and things like that. I find that interesting that they've changed their name, the umbrella company name, to Meta, and now they've got this campaign of,
I think it's interesting from the point of view of, having in the past, I did a master's in business admin, and I learned about, organizational development and organizational change. And it's maybe not obvious to everybody, but you can't just come out and say, okay, we're stopping doing this. We're going to do something different, and we're going to be better now. You can't just change an organization that quickly. So, and you can't convince people that it will change that quickly. So there's some smart change management people who seem to have been involved in looking at Facebook's big problems and saying, okay, if we want to change our image, we have to start with small messaging and ads and things like that, and start building a reinforced message before we come out and say, yeah, we're going to do better.
Yeah. Doesn't this happen, though, after every Facebook scandal? I mean, Cambridge Analytica, just going back to that, which was years ago, but they also had a similar type of thing where they came out with, commercials and had portrayed this loving and caring Facebook, about your privacy, and they take it seriously and things like that.
That to me sounds more like a branding campaign. It's like, okay, we need to change our image. Let's start projecting things that look better. In this case, I think, by having open discussions with people and showing people who are actually doing something, it sort of gives it a bit more credibility, I guess, with the audience. Whether it's actually going to be any different or not is a whole other problem.
Yeah, we will see. But quite interesting to see how that may develop. Like you said, in the future, if regulations and laws end up easing up, and will we see this again in Facebook? We don't know.
Yeah, really interesting.
Oh yeah. Are you looking for the very best products to protect your digital privacy? Well, Silent Pocket has everything you need with their patented product line of high-quality Faraday bags, backpacks, clutches, and wallets. Visit silentpocket.com today and receive 10% off your order by using discount code SHAREDSECURITY.
You want your organization to be secure and compliant and to have a healthy culture, but your employees' lack of awareness makes you vulnerable to data theft, fraud, and compliance penalties. It's frustrating that the boring, static training content that's being used today has failed to improve employees' ability to defend against cyber attacks. At ClickArmor, we know that without using gamification, it's extremely hard to get staff to understand how to avoid threats. Our gamified simulations and challenges have provided a 50% average improvement in thousands of employees' ability to spot phishing threats. Go to clickarmor.ca/sharedsecurity to get your free gamified phishing assessment for up to 500 employees. You'll see quickly how gamified simulations can help your team be more resilient and compliant, and help avoid costly ransomware and fraud incidents. Let ClickArmor help you go from being an underappreciated, stressed out fall guy to being an innovative leader who's the catalyst for greater productivity in your organization.
So, next story here was about hackers are outsourcing social engineering to bots. And this is about how I'm sure many of our listeners have received phone calls which are coming from an automated bot that says they're from your bank, and they're either alerting you to a suspicious transaction, fraudulent transaction, something like that.
Yep.
And in this case, these bots are asking you to put in your two-factor authentication code, so that they can verify your account, of course, verify.
Yeah.
your accounts. And it's kind of an interesting trend now that we're seeing. Before they used to, attackers would outsource this type of work to these call centers, and literally they would just call people on the phone. But they've automated this so much now that they can use bots, and there's criminals that are making money off of selling these bots to other criminals.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It is interesting. I mean, they're obviously refining their methods. I think, remember a couple of months ago, you and Kevin and I talked about the gift card scams and how those have evolved, to be more efficient or effective for the attackers. This is the same idea. It's really nothing different in the process. It's just making it more efficient, right? And I can see a couple of reasons why. You get a call from somebody and they have a foreign accent saying, your bank card has been compromised or something, right? And you go, well, shields up right away. But if it's automated system, everybody uses automated systems now, right? But the underlying risk and sort of defense against it is, you should never be giving any personal information to any person or system if it called you. Right? If you didn't ask or initiate the transaction, if you lose a card or have inquiries, you call them, they're going to for sure ask you for PIN numbers and multi-factor things and stuff like that, which is legitimate. But if they call you, there's no reason to believe they are who they say they are.
That's right. That's right. And the other aspect of this is that it makes up for attackers that just don't have the social engineering skills of talking to people.
I don't know if I've told you the story about this, but when around 2015 or so, when I started doing stuff beyond the Honeystick project, right, I actually got my first job for an organization to do some Honeystick drops and also a social engineering project where I would try to call their customer support team and get them to make changes in the database that would cause lots of problems if it actually was successful. And it was very hard for me to pretend to be somebody I wasn't, or ask or state things, that weren't true, to try and get people to do things. So I understand that problem for sure.
Yeah, we all can't be Rachel Toback, unfortunately. Master social engineers that win, DEF CON social engineering capture the flag contests every year. But it does take a certain type of talent. And they've now just made this very easy because corporations have automated calling their customers. I remember just a couple of years ago, I had some fraudulent charges on my credit card, and I got an automated call from my bank. But what was interesting, it didn't ask me for personal information. It says, hey, we suspected fraud on your account. Please call us. Call us at our number on the back of your card.
Exactly. That's the best way to do it, right? There's still a lot of companies that don't recognize that that's really the only thing you can ask somebody to do.
Right. And the other thing to add to this too is because, and we'll link this in the show notes, a really good article on Vice that talked about this. And I found this story out on a podcast, the Cyber podcast that I listened to through Vice. And they interviewed the guy that did the research on this. And it's interesting how he said that more and more of these criminals are just reselling these things. And it's become this huge online business now. And so they've automated it all through Discord and through Telegram as that mechanism, right, for reselling this. It's and literally they call it like a SaaS-based business model.
It's interesting. I mean, because in this particular attack, it's really a man-in-the-middle attack, right, where the system is collecting your multi-factor authentication in this particular use case. There may be others where you give a PIN, right? And a PIN would be more persistent. So if an attacker can get your multi-factor authentication and act on it right away, that's one thing. But they can't come back again later with the same PIN unless they make a change to your password or something, right? So it's interesting. It'd be interesting to understand more about how they actually sort of persistently leverage that. The other thing I was going to say is with respect to tools, that's actually been a problem for a while with malware developers, right? And ransomware and rootkit developers. They basically create a toolkit, that they sell or even give away to other hackers. to use, but the authors always get the data when the toolkit is used, right? So it just gets some more coverage.
Yep. And if you're curious to know how they get your information, a lot of this is from, stolen databases, data breaches that have happened where, usernames and passwords are all exposed.
Mm-hmm.
And they will, they can link that back to maybe it was a bank account that you have. They just try randomly, like the biggest banks in America, like Bank of America, right?
Yep.
And they just send these out to millions of people. There's probably a good chance that they're going to come across a Bank of America customer.
What's interesting is in Canada, there are 5 chartered banks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're a tenth the population, but I guess proportionally, we have a very few number of banks compared to the population. And so there's a good chance if you're an attacker and you're doing a broad attack like that you're going to have a 20% chance of guessing the right bank.
That's right.
Somebody.
That's right. So interesting stuff. And it just reminded me kind of my research I had done many years ago on social network bots. And I'm just always fascinated about how the bot technology keeps evolving. And really, it's been just, used more to con us into giving away this information.
Well, someday we'll, maybe next month or something, we could do we've probably done episodes on deep fakes and voice fakes, right? But I mean, there's some interesting stuff I'm hearing now about how they train the systems and how effective they are. So that'd be a good topic.
Absolutely. So our last story, our friends, the NSO group, who makes the infamous Pegasus. Malware. Yes, that always keeps coming up in the news. This is the malware that affects iPhones, Android devices, specifically more iPhones, but of dissidents and journalists and others have been targeted by nation states using this software. They have now been sanctioned by the United States, along with 3 other alleged groups that are also selling similar types of software. I think one was 2 others from Russia, but it's good to see finally that there's some action being taken, at least from a government perspective of, putting them on a trading blacklist, I think will help the situation. But nonetheless, people will find a way around it.
Yeah. I mean, Pegasus is an interesting thing. I think I mentioned in a previous episode, I learned more about it from that book by Nicole Perlroth called This is How They Tell Me the World Ends, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the history of, vulnerability markets and things like that, right? How do you selling 0 days, and how the NSO group and Pegasus kind of grew out of other similar operations and evolved the whole market in that area. But they always claim we only sell to organizations or governments that promise not to use it against their own people or for non-humanitarian reasons, and of course that stands up not very well.
Yeah, that's right. So we've talked about Pegasus for years now, and it's just it's kind of sad that it's still a topic, because this company is still in existence, and I think they will continue to be. They will always find a way around sanctions, I'm sure.
And I'm sure there are more like them, right, in Russia or China or whatever, right? So
it's that cyber arms race, right?
Yeah, and if anyone believes we're not yet in a cyber war,
forget not it. Breaking news, guys. No. We've been in this for a long time. So, All right. Well, I think that's all the stories we have this week. But anything you got coming up, Scott? That
I was just in a trade show for a couple of days in a virtual booth.
Ooh, how was that virtual booth?
The virtual booth experience is always interesting. You have to learn how to work it, right? I mean, you can't just sit there and wait for people to say, "Hey, tell me about your product." You've got to reach out to everybody.
I was going to say, does anybody even show up at a virtual booth?
Well, you don't see them, but you refresh the page and say, "Hey, he's here 10 seconds ago." So, that was fun. But no, I actually am doing a pitch fest. I'm a finalist. There's a conference here in Ottawa called SaaS North for SaaS startups. So
nice.
ClickArmor got invited, and I'll be doing a pitch there in mid-November.
Very nice. Very nice. I will actually be doing a webinar next week. So next Wednesday, a Bishop Fox webinar on threat modeling with one of my coworkers, Chris Bush. So if that's something of interest to anyone in the audience, threat modeling and application security, feel free to sign up. It's going to be a good webinar.
Yeah. And I'll pitch my last webinar as well, which was one on the phishing assessment optimizer. So I created a little sort of a guide to all of the challenges and problems that you can have doing phishing simulations with end users in an organization. And, I've done it many times, and I thought it was kind of fun to put together this, it's a downloadable PDF that you can get from the website. But I did a sort of 50-minute walkthrough of why I did it and all the fun stories around how I discovered all the pitfalls, why you get bad data from them and how they kind of really aggravate people. And of course, at the end, you realize, but there might be a better way than wasting all your time trying to get the data right and keeping people from being upset. So that's where ClickArmor comes in. So.
Awesome. Well, we'll have all of that linked in the show notes. So
nice.
You can check all that out at sharedsecurity.net. And as always, subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts.
Give us comments on YouTube. We love that.
Yes, especially if it's about Kevin. We really like that.
Apparently he's running for president of EFF.
That's right. And we're very close to 500 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do.
Yeah,
we would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, folks.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And we will talk to everyone next week. That's all for this week's show. Be sure to follow the Shared Security Show on Twitter and Instagram for the latest news and show updates. If you like this episode, please hit that like and subscribe button, and please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast listening app. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week for another episode of the Shared Security Show.